Yeah.
never had a conversation with an African that had anything to do with money,
Yeah.
finances,
Yes.
and setting yourself up for success in the States.
Mhm.
First of all, why do you think that is? You're an African. Why do you think talking about money and finances is almost a taboo for Africans? Well, hello, STEM2Roots. This is Mike Demba. This is where we plan on talking our way into a plan. Today, I have a brother of mine I've met like over, it's getting to a decade now since we last,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
since we met. Because I think this was 2014, I think. Yeah, this
2013.
yeah,
Yeah.
13 to 14, yeah, we
Yeah.
met. And bro, I want you to introduce yourself to my people. Tell us who you are, where you're from, anything you can share now, because we'll get to know you more as we go.
Yeah. I'm Sharif. I'm originally from New Jersey, but I migrated to Mass a long time ago,
Mhm.
and I've lived there ever since. What do I do now? I do business, whether it's real estate or construction or setting up a new endeavor in government contracting. And I also do mergers and acquisitions. So I act as a program or project manager for either, I used to work in pharmaceuticals and now I work in mergers and acquisitions. So,
Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
yeah.
So now, you're a contractor. You just work on, projects and contracts. And how is the
Oh
business?
man,
What's the business today?
that has morphed into many things. So today, after learning a lot of trial and error and changing strategy
Hmm.
and some losses, I moved more into government contracting. It is more of a lucrative endeavor, pretty straightforward. I
Hmm.
don't need to do a lot of man management. You could easily sub out. What you
Hmm.
have to take care of the what a project manager does in real life is what you have to do, which is just coordinating the work done, getting schedules, communication, and
Yes.
then, you know, and just making sure the subcontractor is going to execute because your
Yes.
contract is going to be written in such a way
Hmm.
where if he doesn't execute, he doesn't get paid, right? So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Sharif, ever since I met you, you have a fascinating story. So I want to go all the way back.
Yeah.
So you've always lived in the East Coast of the United States. So New Jersey, and then moved to Mass. Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah. I was actually in the military and I lived in Arizona for about 5 years and then 1 year in Mississippi for training. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
is new to me. All right. Before all
Yeah.
of that, so you've served this nation for like as a professional for a long time now. Before all of that, where you originally? What's your background? Where you originally from?
Oh, so I'm Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Lagos. You know, if you listen to Nigerian music, you hear Neo Ledba. They
I've
know
heard
my
that.
story. Yeah,
I've heard that.
yeah. My family house to the Ojo Ledba bus stop is about 5 minutes. So it's
So that's the location.
yeah, that's a location. That's a bus stop actually. That's where all the transportation cars go and you catch the bus.
Oh, I've
You
heard
know,
that. I've
so
heard
that
that.
was in Surulere, and when I say my family house, that's my mom's sister's house, but we're always there. And then I grew up in Iyanopaja, Lagos, which is more of what they call the trenches. It's a lower middle class
I see.
place.
I see.
Africa is such a strange place because
Uh-huh.
although it was lower middle class, my mother was here. So I wasn't living with my mom at the time. I was living with her friend.
Mm. Hmm.
And my father was not lower middle class by any stretch of the imagination. He was actually pretty business savvy. He owned his own, was part of a cement conglomerate
You told me that.
with some wealthy, well-known folks in Nigeria now. Like it
Mm.
was one of Dangote's biggest distributors, and
Mm.
Falawiyo and things like that. So I didn't even know that story until I went
Yes.
back to Nigeria 2 years ago to find out his roots. So we weren't like super close, but so that's where I grew up. I grew up in a very low middle class area. There was no telephones, there was no flushing toilets, none of that stuff. Like it was hard. It wasn't hard, but it was normal. You don't think of it
Was
as
normal
hard.
because yes,
But everyone
yes,
else is in the same thing. You grew up with it. It's like
yes, yes,
that's what it is.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
we moved
Yeah.
here a little bit right after I turned 10. We moved to the United States, moved to New Jersey, and my first time in the U.S. was kind of interesting. In the U.S., when you go to
Yes,
school here as a kid, there's a lot of
yes,
bullying and a lot of little things like that. But
yes,
coming from Nigeria, you're not really susceptible to that because
yes,
as a kid, you're primed to survive.
yes,
So you're not
yes,
really thinking about like, oh, my clothing doesn't look good. I'm not wearing the flyest
yes,
shoes.
yes,
So that was
yes.
never a thought in my mind when I came to this country. And even when I was a
Mm.
kid, I was always like that, right? So it was always, how do I survive? And if I
Hmm.
was going to be selling Skittles in school to survive, that's what I did. We grew up in a nice
Yes,
neighborhood in Old Bridge. So our neighborhood was
yes,
very
yes,
upper middle class. But I tell people we were the
yes.
poorest people on the block.
I
You
hear
know,
you. Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
we lived
What
in
did
the
what lessons did you gather from that? It's looking at your environment and calling yourself, oh, I'm the poorest in this neighborhood. Like
Oh, we
what
were one of the
gather any
poorest.
lesson from that? Yes.
No, no lessons. I was just always grateful. I wasn't
Mm.
someone that dwell on the negative. If something bad, maybe it's scars from Africa too, because I don't think that's
Huh.
all positive.
Yes. Yes.
When something
Yes.
bad happens, where you could just say, "Well, that happens," you shut it down, and then you pick yourself up and go again.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not sure if
Hmm.
that's like scars that I've never really gotten consultation for, but that's
Whether
how I
you never
sort of
dealt
deal
with
with
it.
it. Yeah, yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I sort of deal with it.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't say it's such a good thing, but it's something I've always dealt with it that way. Like, if we're the
Yes.
poorest person, and I knew we're not very wealthy, and something simple like, for my soccer games, my mother
Uh-huh.
couldn't come, you know, and sometimes she couldn't pay $150 to be there because she was working three jobs,
Of course.
and because it was a really nice town,
Hmm.
wanted us to have good education, and she had to work her butt off for that.
To pay for that.
Yeah,
Mm.
well, to pay for that town to live there,
Yes.
right? Because when
Yes.
you look at the average rent in some areas, that area's rent was very high.
Mm.
So I got an opportunity to go to really good public school with a lot of kids with influence. However, on the down end, I didn't see my mom very often, maybe on Sunday. And she got home, I just massaged her foot, say hello, and
Yeah.
things like that because she was working three jobs. She
Wow.
sacrificed
Wow.
buying homes in Africa to make sure we live there, right? She could have saved a lot of money to live somewhere else, trust me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she did not do that. So it was
Uh,
good.
you see, now, like I said, the listeners, my people will get to know you as we talk. So you've given us a background of
Yeah,
where you're from, where
yeah.
it all started, what age you got to the United States, a very young age where you had to learn the ropes from
Mhm.
age 10. A new place, new environment, to now a family man, who you've tried so many different businesses from being an employee,
Mhm.
to being a man that has set up different things for yourself, your own business. You've mentioned the military. I don't know if you mentioned that to me before, but I could not remember. So this is vast. You're a man. Sounds like you've lived 10 lives already, 10 lifetimes already.
A
I
bit
want
too
to go
quick.
back eh, with a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work. Yeah.
A lot of work. So I want to go back to when we met. This was around 2014.
Hmm.
We met in a company. that I worked for. I just began, and you were a familiar face because
Mm.
I gravitated towards saying hi and getting to talk to you because this is Cambridge, Mass, and that company didn't have a lot of people for me that looked like me.
Yep.
Soon as we struck a conversation, you went straight to something that has changed how I look at a lot of things being in America because I was in America for 10 years then.
Yeah.
Never had a conversation with an African that had anything to do with money,
Yeah.
finances,
Yes.
and setting yourself up for success in the States.
Mm.
First of all, why do you think that is? You're an African. Why do you think talking about money and finances is almost a taboo for Africans?
It's
Or do you
taboo
see it the
for
same way?
it's taboo for everyone.
Hmm.
It's taboo for everyone. I think that's unfortunate. Like, the way I put it is this. Think about it. If you go into a job
Mhm.
at your company and you know that the head engineer there, the same rank as you, is making 150,000,
Mhm.
would you demand the same? Would that
Yes.
help you
Yes.
understand that this is what you want and this is
Yes.
what your value is?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
so whose advantage is it for you not to talk about finances?
The company,
The company,
the
or
business.
and
Yes.
let's look on a grander scale. The institution that we live in, the,
Yes.
the institution the US has created, or you.
Yes.
The institution is advantaged by you, by your lack of information. And from an early age, I have learned that uh, information and knowledge comes with paying a big price, right? So I had to pay to learn a few things, and that doesn't mean when you learn it and you try to
Yes.
execute, you won't make mistakes. So in some cases, I was paying two, three, four times for something I paid to learn.
You mentioned
You
that
get
to
what I'm
me.
saying
Yes.
to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like from that early age, by the time I met you,
Yes.
I'd already started doing like import export business.
You told me that. Yes.
Taking materials and goods to Brazil, doing a few trips, taking stuff to Nigeria to sell, right? And to get better at doing those businesses, like Nigeria wasn't really lucrative, but Brazil was. But to get better at doing the business in Brazil, I had to pay for knowledge on how to do it there,
Mm.
right? And when it became unattainable because of school and all the life goals here,
Yes.
and I was a bit more fearful of doing that kind of stuff without education in my back
Mm-hmm.
pocket,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, I decided to kind of stop it and try to venture to something else. You see, so that was why when I meet other Africans, I talk about it. And I'm not afraid to talk about my failures because you're not going to, a lot of business people have had a lot of failures.
Yes.
So it's not all going to be rosy. It's going to be very difficult, and it's a life journey, and it
Mm.
doesn't guarantee success. But last thing I want to do is die without trying.
You've mentioned something. I narrowed it down to Africa, but thank you for actually making it known and clear that the conversation of money, is just beyond African. It's just because now, as soon as you started mentioning that, I'm thinking about my work environment. I'm thinking about just generally, not only Africans but everybody. You don't tell each other how much you earn. You don't tell each other where your money comes from. You don't tell each other your failures, because it's almost a shame.
Yeah.
And for me, as an African, the reason why I thought it was an African thing is because I come from a place where, whether it's parents or family, money was not a conversation for the kid. You don't have parents teaching their kids
Oh,
about money.
that is true.
That part of it, though, is that an African thing? Why is that?
Well, Africans, if you look at African household, the father is the head of the household, and the father
Yes,
earns the money.
yes,
And the father is never really close with the mom, either because he's just around working too much, or a lot of African dads, let's be honest, love women and they mess around,
same.
and they do that quite frequently.
Yeah.
right? And our mothers were just like reserved.
Yes.
They're gonna be cooking at home and taking care of my kids, but I'm gonna go out there and have fun with my friends and whoever prostitute I could find, right? So that's how African households are set up.
Mm.
So the kid doesn't really grow up to understand his father. And today's day and age, a lot of kids that are growing up in a well-to-do African home, by the
Yes.
time they start learning about their dad, they're already jetting off to school in the U.S.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
in my case, right,
Yes.
growing up,
Mhm.
I didn't know what my dad did. I had no idea what he did. In fact, I didn't meet my dad till I was like 7 for the first time. And my mom used to tell us that, hey, if your dad saw you guys, he's gonna take it. And we didn't understand because I'm like, Mom, you're in the US. And my mom was pretty much like, yeah, your dad is powerful. He will take you. There's nothing she could do about it. Like, if he will take, he knew people in powerful places, and they would never see her again, and she would never see us again. So she was real careful
Mm.
of what it
Mm.
could do, right?
Yes.
But my dad wasn't really like that in real life. My mom was fearful.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that was always in me. So nonetheless, when I went over there and met him the first time, he wasn't working. He lived in a modest 2-story house amongst normal population. Like nothing really stuck out.
Okay.
But what
Okay.
caught my eye was one of the first weekends we met him.
Uh-huh.
And I went outside to buy candy. And being from the what I call the trenches in Lagos,
Yes.
when you go out there, you act a certain way. But I remember a guy said, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from visiting my dad in Afamino Street. And he goes, oh, and his whole demeanor changed in the way he was treating me. And that was the first clue.
Because of your dad. Mm.
Yeah, but I didn't know why,
Yes.
in my mind, I'm like, why did you talk to the other kid this way? Because I was playing with the other area kids. Nigeria, you just walk out and you talk to street kids and you play soccer and, so that's what I was pretty much doing.
Yes.
But the minute he found out where I was from, his whole demeanor changed, And even when I was going home, he said, oh, no, I'll walk you home and make sure you get there safely. And I didn't know who he was or why. But the more I went over to my dad's, I realized, okay, he's something important. And also it was weird that every Friday they brought suitcases of money to him. And I did not, I've never seen that kind of stuff before, right? I'm talking about like huge suitcases with huge notes. Like that's kind of weird, right? If someone told me that my dad was a drug dealer, I would have believed him.
Yes.
If someone told me my dad was a hired assassin, I would have believed him.
Yes. Because you just saw money come in. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know what it did, and we never talked about it, right? And as I was getting older, when we came to the States, and my mom would talk about it, my mom would say, well, your dad is in the cement business, and he has a cement conglomerate, and and I'm like, but she also said things like he was uneducated, and he was a thug when he was a kid, and it was so troublesome they sent him to Lagos to go live somewhere else because the village was just, they couldn't handle him at the village. And in my mind, I'm like, how can you go from a thug, uneducated, to Lagos, washing cars, being a cement and errand boy, to being successful?
Yes.
That's kind of strange.
Huh.
So so I never knew more than that. My mom didn't have much information.
Yes.
So that's always bitten me up. And my dad died in 2005 when I was in high school. So I never got to ask, and when he died, like a man with many kids and many wives,
yes,
and didn't change with the business tides, you fade away quickly. Africa is a place where you can make millions, but you can also lose billions in the blink of an eye, and no one is there to rescue you. That's the difference between Africa and America, really. The real difference is they print their own money. America and Africa doesn't, right? That's the real problem. So when I mean printing, I'm not talking about like physical printing, like your money
yes.
anything. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Yeah.
Like Cameroon and Nigeria could be trading goods today, and they're gonna trade in dollars, not in their own currencies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by printing. That's why you print money. Is the value you put on your own dollars.
Your own money, yes.
Right? So Africa is a very cutthroat place. So you could go from being a very wealthy individual to being a very poor individual real quick, or being
Just
average
like,
or modest.
just like that. Yes,
Entrepreneur,
yes,
right? So
yes. Mm.
I think my dad was one of those people that just didn't uh, invest in himself. Well, no, he didn't believe in education. He just didn't want to waste his time. He was
Yes.
making so much money in his business, and he had so many educated people working for him that he figured, why should I?
At the end of the day, it's about making money. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Mm.
But his
Mm.
close friends and confidants went to get their education,
Ah.
right? Like there's a well-known family in Nigeria, the Falawiyos. The patriarch was a friend of my dad's, and they were best friends.
Mm.
They were doing the same business, started together, grew together, everything together.
Okay.
And him and then Dangote's father at the time um, started working after he graduated in school and Dangote graduated. They started partnering up to build the Lagos port. At the time, there was no port, right?
Ah.
And they built that port, but my dad was not part of it because he didn't see the use in it. It was like, I'm gonna get cement. My cement is gonna come in. I'm gonna sell it. Like I'm gonna import.
Make money.
Yeah, like you didn't see the use in like going into building your own,
Yes.
putting out the middleman. Like maybe you didn't see the strategy early enough. By the time you saw what they were doing, it
Yeah.
was late. But the good part is he knew them very well, and he
Yeah.
became the number one supplier for them, for Dangote and him, and for Lawio. And those two
Yeah.
families now are well known in Nigeria.
Of course. Yes. When you say Dangote, like he's globally known.
He is globally known, and so
Yes.
is Falawio, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is another thing when I see people like that come and visit him,
Yes.
and again, I didn't know what my dad did, but I saw a lot of police, a lot of army, and I'm like, what is going on? You know, but they come in there and they just greet him and they pay their respect, and everyone is sir, sir, sir. What is going on? Because he never said anything about what he did. Anything.
And that's the part I'm interested in, like where he never mentioned what he did, like you just shared everything, this story about your dad. He never shared what he did. Like a lot of African households, like they don't say it and share what they do and talk about money and tell you what to do with it. They're instructive. If they want you to do something, they'll tell you do this, do that, but it's not a teaching of what to do when they're not around. And
They don't
so,
teach you how to think.
oh
That's
man.
one of the pitfalls of African households. They don't teach you how to think. The way to
Mm.
think, you have to make mistakes. You know, um, yeah, a lot of African households don't teach you how to think.
So when we leave with that, because that's true, I'm not even debating that. They don't teach us how to think. They're instructive in, oh, do this. Oh, no, no, no. I know what I'm telling you. Do this, right? And then you leave as a young person. You left at a very young age. I came here when I was already 20, and with no knowledge. Like I said, didn't have any financial conversation until 10 years after I've lived here. Made a lot of mistakes, including, I'm gonna share this with you. I don't know. I think maybe I shared this then, but you'll forget. When we met, I had just left the company. It's called Team Group Trade Ideas Monitoring. So they were in the stock market. They built software that they had a lot of like hedge funds and banks and subscribe to to basically get statistics of like trade ideas, which broker has been accurate for how long, basically putting stats together. When I was leaving, they were closing their Boston office and they were going back to London, or they were continuing business in London, but they were closing the Boston office. That was how I moved over to Vecna, where we met. Part of for 3.5 years, I worked in a company where language like ticker symbol, stock market, like all the stock market lingo was all I heard every day. But being in tech, I was there making sure all our systems are working, making sure nothing is down, making sure everybody had a computer, right? And I had no interest in what everybody else around me was talking about. When they when I was leaving because the way I was leaving the company, they gave me a severance package, like
Mm.
paid me 2 months, and part of when I was leaving was because I worked there longer than 6 months. I was getting stocks, right? And part of the what they asked me was whether to give me the value of whatever I got in stocks in my severance package, that last
Mm.
pay I'll get, or I'll maintain it where now I'll have to move it to a broker or whatever exchange that I use. I was like, what are they talking about? Oh yeah, no, just pay me whatever that is, with no idea what the value was, how many I had, because I had no idea. And then, a couple of months into Vecna, we met. Boom. You started talking to me about things that I never had the conversation about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like me today, Africans all around.
Mm.
Is it their fault that now, today, as we speak in 2023, they should be plugged in and find this information? Or is their background to blame on how we don't even pursue the knowledge of, finances?
It's the way we're wired, and the amount of stress. Everyone is different. It's the amount of stress you have back home. A lot of Africans I know, when you meet them, they're hustling and bustling, and they have
Yes.
responsibilities back home, and that paycheck means a lot to them. And even
Mm.
after that paycheck, a lot of them were young, middle adult professionals, and they have, I'm looking for a husband, I'm looking to get married, I'm looking to have kids. And when you focus on that chase of life, you won't have the opportunity to um, sit back and think about things like that. It's not occurring to you. I always say this: the people that enjoy America, some of the most successful groups in
Yes.
America, they say are
Yes.
Nigerians. But when you look within that Nigerian population, we are second
Yes.
most successful group in the United States.
Yes.
But when you look within the second most successful group in the United States, you will see that the kids of Nigerians are very successful. What does that tell you? That tell you that
Mm.
if you're an immigrant, your life here is not to
Yes.
enjoy. Your life here is to work your ass off
Yes.
to make sure your kids become something.
Yes.
And even if all your kids
Yes.
don't become something, one of them becomes something. You see, and provide for them. So a lot
Oh.
of people that are immigrants like us are in that providing mode. And it's very hard to slow that down and start thinking about something else. And even me as I'm talking to you,
Yes.
I've made sacrifices to ensure I could provide
Yes.
and put my own dreams or whatever I've worked on the back burner. You see,
Ah.
and you have to think about it in that term. But my kids will have way more knowledge, right?
Right.
My son is 9 and he already knows about properties, apartments, valuation. He
Mm.
already understands like the power of money,
Mm.
and he will negotiate with you at his age, right? He might not know the real value of money, but he knows the power of it. For instance, he will say, Dad, can I get this? And I said, no, you can't get that. He goes, Dad, but what if I do this and do that? It's extra. You didn't ask me to. Then can I get this? Right? And he's already bargaining with me, something I couldn't even ever imagine doing with my father.
Yes.
Because my father
Yes.
wouldn't even give me the opportunity. We
It's
don't
the final word. Yep.
our brains didn't even operate like that around our
Yes.
parents. There was
Yes.
no bargaining chip,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
There's no idea of how to get what you want. So
Yes.
he has a sense of determination that I didn't have at his age, right?
Huh.
A sense of I want it, and what can I do for you for me to get it,
Yes.
right? And my daughter is the same now. Like for you to take a toy from her, you have to give her a toy, and she takes the other toy, and
Gotta
you give it,
exchange.
right? Exchange.
And
But
you're seeing that wiring of
yeah,
your kids versus when you were a kid with your
yes,
parents.
yeah, yeah. I see it already because when I was a kid, I was pretty quiet, introverted, and just did what I was told and played a lot of soccer. That was it.
Bro, thank you for mentioning that, because as you were talking, I was thinking about it. Something came, and I was scrolling through like what we all do now through social media, this YouTube shorts, and I came across this Trevor Noah interview with Oprah, where he mentioned the African tax, and that was the first time me hearing it. The black tax, he called it, but I call it African tax, which is what you just mentioned. Where, when I got here, as soon as I made that first dollar, whichever way I made it, I was valet parking. I had right away to think about my responsibilities, and my responsibilities, without even anybody telling me, was helping back home. Right. So right away, that very little that I got, I was already thinking about how to split that and help back home.
Yeah.
4 years into living here, my dad passed away, 3 years after your dad. So 2008, my dad passed away. Right away, as my dad's first son, without anybody giving me the instructions, I knew my position already. Right? Take over the household, help your mom, help your younger ones. Everything you earn, split it and help. Right? So no time at all to think about, all right, if I'm sending $200 a month, maybe 150 and investing 50. Why am I even thinking about investing 50? Where? Like, no, I'm not even interested in learning that.
Right.
Matter of fact, I'm not even thinking about it. The hustle, work more hours, get more jobs, send money back home so that you keep more for yourself. So I was not even exposed to where I could have the conversation. I tell my wife this all the time. I worked with right after I left Vecna, because I worked there for a year and a half. I worked at a company called Financial Recovery Technologies. I've always worked for these fintech companies. And the guy that was sitting not across from me, we shared a cubicle and it was glass between us. He started talking to me about crypto. He started talking to me about Bitcoin. 2016. Showed me how to get how to create I think it was Coinbase account. Yes. He said, go ahead, create an account, just put in a little money, buy this, buy that. And every time he spoke to me about it, I even created an account with a login. I said, yes, I'll go ahead and create it. I remember us getting a bonus at the end of the year, and he told me he's going to put such and such amount of that bonus he got into crypto, whether I'll do the same. I said to him, yes, I'll do the same, but I prioritized other things. Didn't buy a Gucci belt and bag and go to Jamaica.
You don't have the luxury to do that. Yeah.
I didn't do that. I took that money, put it somewhere I thought was priority, and that money was gone, like within that week, right? And so that lack of education in being able to, as I continued learning, pay yourself, invest, and all that, was not something that I had access to. And I blame Africa for that. I don't know whether blame is the word. What's the word for you?
Oh, yeah. Going back to my childhood struggling, with coming to the U.S., I've always been, how do I earn the next dollar? So I didn't think about stocks, but I definitely thought about selling goods. Like I told you when I came to the U.S., when I mentioned selling Skittles, if you go by my words, that wasn't a joke. I will take my lunch money, starve myself for a week, and I'll start buying all the candies people like in the vending machines around school, to the point where there will be no candies in the vending machines. But for you to buy it from me, I'll charge you 25 cents more on each candy. And I did that for like 9-10 months. So it was whatever I could do to earn a buck. And that was before I got a job. And I did stuff like that until I was able to start working.
Wow.
Right. And so I've always looked at like trading, earning money, business, and my brain was always into that. I've never felt comfortable working for anyone. Right. And even when I was at Beckner with you, when I started my conversation, that's why my mind is entrepreneurial.
Yes.
And I don't want to.
You were not settled in. You were looking for, the next thing.
I'm looking for ideas, and the only way you're going to get ideas is by talking to people. Some of the best ideas came from the people I spoke with. Doing government contracting came from speaking to random people. From random groups. And so yeah, it was for me, I've never really not thought about investment.
Yes.
It was the time frame and opportunity to invest.
Yes. Yes.
So I think when I was in the military,
Uh-huh.
because in the military they take care of all your livelihood, and then
Yes.
they pay you $1,500 a month, and that
Mm.
$1,500 a month is literally, it's not even for food because they feed you 3 times a day
Yes.
for free, right?
Yes.
So $1,500 a month is if you want to go eat outside or do other things, or your cell phone bill or your car bill.
Yeah.
My cell phone bill and my car bill were like $400. So I still had 1,000 left over, but I wasn't gonna spend that. For me, I would drive drunk people on Thursday, Fridays, Saturdays before Uber, and I would charge them $10 a pop. To drive them around where they wanted to
You
go.
were Uber before Uber.
Yeah, but I was real popular because I was sober, and I wasn't sober because I
Yeah.
didn't like drinking. I've never drank. I don't know if I like it or not.
Yeah.
I didn't drink because I didn't want to spend my money. The first time I went up to a bar, they said $10. Because I'm not paying nothing for $10. Are you nuts? Right? So it was just like that. I was never gonna go drink by myself because why would I want to waste all that time doing that when I could do
Yes.
something else, right? So, yeah. So it's my mind has always been like that, yeah, into business and earning, and financial stability is huge for me. And when I don't have that, I get nervous. So
There's a lot. There's a lot for people to learn from this conversation.
yeah.
Whether it's how you're wired, whether it's because even if you don't have that, you have some of that coming from your dad because he's lived it. So
Mm,
I want to encourage everybody, even if you don't have that, if it's not in your DNA,
yeah.
just knowing somebody talk about thinking that way,
Yeah.
working on wiring yourself that way is not impossible.
No.
You don't have to have it in your blood. It can be learned, right? And we've gone past halfway where I have a tradition where I take a breather and I call it, tell me something I don't know. And, for you, you've already told me 1,000 things already, but I
Yeah.
want to make it official because this part of the segment, people want to hear. Anything it is that you think I don't know, please share. And if I know it, I'll let you know I do. If I don't, I'll tell you, oh, wow, you're right. That I did not know. Tell me something you think I don't know.
One of the biggest um, reasons small businesses fail is due to growth.
Inability to grow?
No, growth.
What does that mean?
Growing too fast.
Come again. Growing too fast
Yeah,
can lead to them failing.
correct.
That I didn't know. I thought growth was positive.
Not always. When you grow, you need investments. And when you invest heavily, you're taking huge risks. That's what investments are. So if you grow too fast as a small business,
Mm-hmm.
and in that period of growth, you invest a ton of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for some reason, you couldn't keep up, and you start like having cash flow issues because there's a period of growth where you're spending, and then
Yes.
a period of profitability when the money starts coming back in full circle.
Whatever you
Right.
put in, coming back. Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're putting that money in and you're growing so fast, you are the highest risk of failure at that time.
Mm.
That's why they say growth is one of the highest reasons small businesses fail.
So then, what is a small business to do? Like if this is not a consultation time, but at a high level, once you start growing like that, you're putting in a lot in growing.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to not do?
Partnerships, understanding your limits.
Hmm.
Don't see growth as all positive.
Okay.
Really sitting back and assessing risk. Because another thing you do is when you're growing, you move in such a fast pace that you start to overlook a lot of the risk,
Hmm. Makes sense.
right?
Makes sense.
So you don't see the risk because you're not fully assessing it. You're so focused on the growth.
Growth. You're
You don't have a lot of
you're
small
looking at the wrong numbers. Yeah.
don't have the back office to run the numbers. You know,
That makes sense.
That's what I mean by like growth. And it happened to me. It actually happened recently, and I had to learn. It was like, man, I had to stop everything and think back to what worked.
What works?
Like what have I done in my 10 years that worked
Mm-hmm.
best,
Mm-hmm.
and what are those strategies? And let me just focus on what worked. And one day I just said, boom.
I see it.
Yeah.
Right.
I just cut it off, and I gave myself a marker of when I'm going to switch everything off and switch some things back on. And I'm in the middle of that now. But it took years to find out.
Took years to find out.
Yeah.
You've learned your lessons and you're making all those changes, and
Yeah.
and it's just important to you to even bring it up out here in the open.
Oh yeah, it's very important because we all don't have mentors that's gonna guide you.
Yes.
Most mentors, most people I meet that are doing this business or doing any kind of business or come from families, fathers, mothers, uncles. I don't have that here. Most immigrants don't have that. So you're gonna learn by mistakes or talking to other Africans that have done it. And there's not too many groups like this. Because usually when you go to this networking group, everyone is trying to sell something low key.
Yes.
Everyone
Low
is
key.
looking.
Yeah.
Everyone is looking for a reference. But that's not what I think about.
That's what I want to go straight to on this other side of the segment.